Module 10, Lesson 1, this is how do you write algebraic expressions. So the first thing that we need to look at is what is an algebraic expression. Remember that an expression does not have an equal sign. And it's going to contain one or more variables. Remember that a variable is a letter that represents a number. Algebraic expressions also contain symbols, such as add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So when we talk about an algebraic expression, it's obviously going to include some numbers. It's going to include some operations like add, subtract, multiply, divide. And it's also going to involve some variables. So now let's talk about a variable. So when we define a variable, it is a letter that represents a number. And variables may change. So like the letter A doesn't always represent the number 1. Just because it's the first letter in the alphabet doesn't mean that it always represents the number 1. Variables can be any number. Now let's talk about what a constant is. A constant is specific numbers whose value does not change. So for example, if I had the expression 3 plus n, 3 is a constant. Because the value of 3 is 3. It doesn't change. Any number that stands alone like this is called a constant. Because that value is always that value. So if it was 5, the value of 5 is 5. It's never more, it's never less. It's constantly the same. That's where we get a constant from. It's that same value. And n is considered a, what is it? Variable. So the next thing I want us to do is in our module on page 261, there is a chart. Nope, there's a different chart. On this page, right here, this chart that says operation, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division with the words, we're going to need to cut that out. So on 261, that chart, I want you to cut it out. We're going to glue this chart onto the paper. Under where it says examples, it can go anywhere on there because we're actually going to do the examples somewhere else. But try to put it closer to the word examples because we're going to write a few things underneath the word, underneath this little chart. We're going to add some other words to these lists. So try to put it closer to the word examples up there, like mine. See how I have it closer to the top? You want to try to glue it up there. Okay, so go ahead and get that glued down. Now what we're going to be focusing on, I know I've kind of defined what an expression is and what it involves and some different words that kind of dissect the expression, like a constant and a variable, an operation. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be writing it. They're going to be giving us some words and we're going to have to write the actual expression that kind of looks like this. So whenever they give it to us in words, for addition, they may use the keywords of added to, plus, some, more than. Let's add another one to this list. Increased. We're going to have to spread. So for addition, you might see the word increased. That might be another word that they say. And then when you see that, then you know that you need to add, you need to have a plus sign. For subtraction, you might see the word decreased. Fewer than. Take away from. And as we go along in this chapter, we can add some more to our list if we come up and find some other ones. Also know that you can always use the back of the room where I have the colors, the red, green, turquoise, and yellow on the top. Those are also keywords that help you identify what operation you need to use. This really should not be very new to us. But what I do want us to do is I want us to add down here to the bottom a little star, and I want us to write the word switch order. And we're going to put stars by subtract from, less than, fewer than, and take away from. When we see those words, or when they give us those words, that tells me that I'm going to need to swap the order, which we'll do some of those in just a minute and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So currently in our notebook, we need to glue this because we're going to add some examples underneath it. So again, we're still just gluing the top section up here, but on 73, you're only going to glue the top section because we're going to lift it up and write on this notebook paper here. So again, we're only gluing the top little piece up here so that we can flip this up and write on the notebook paper. can flip it up like I have it. Tells me you're ready to move on. Alright, so it looks like we're ready. So here's our first example that we're going to start writing on the notebook paper. So this is how the problem, or how it's going to be presented. It may say M increased by 30. M increased by 30. So let's determine what the key word in here that tells us the operation to use. Chloe, what do you think? Increase. Remember, we just wrote it down, so let's underline that. We wrote it right here, and it was under addition. So what we're going to do is we're going to take M, and we're going to use a plus sign. And then what number do they tell us that we're increasing? 30. So M plus 30. This is how, and this is all they want us to do. They want us to just write the problem. They've written it in words. They want us to write the problem out. Okay? The next one. So that's example 1. The next one. The difference of 42 and Z. So the key word for this, what do you think, Chris? Difference. So let's underline that. Go back and look. Difference tells us that it's subtraction. Now when we do this, when we're talking about this, when we're dealing with subtraction, subtraction is very important that we keep the order that it's supposed to be. Sometimes we have to keep it in the same order, sometimes we have to switch it. This one doesn't have a star by it. Does the word difference have a star by it? No, so we're not switching the order. This is why we wrote the stars and tells us that these are the ones that have stars. We have to switch their order. We're not switching the order on this. So it says 42 and Z. So that means I'm going to take the number 42 minus Z. So 42 minus Z. Next one, 23 subtracted from N. Subtracted from N. Okay, Jacob, what do you think? Subtracted. There's still some more. Subtracted from. What do you notice? Everybody, flip it down. What do you notice about what it says about subtracted from? What's it say? It has a star. That means I have to switch the order. Switch the order of the number and the variable. So for this, what comes first? N. That's right. We're going to write N first. Minus 23. Now let me tell you why we have to do that. On this problem, we have to do that because if I were to say that Mr. Wilson is taking $23 from me, I'm going to be the N. He's taking $23 from me. Who has the $23? He's taking it $23 from me. Who has it to begin with? You. Me. So I'm the variable right here. I have to start with it before it can be taken away from me, right? So it has to come first. 23 is taken away from n. So that means n has to come first before you can take it away. That's why we have to switch these orders here. Okay, let's look at the next one. Or let's actually put a star here to remind us that we switched the order. Okay, let's try another one. Y times 4. That one seems pretty self-explanatory, doesn't it? But there's a trick to this one. First off, what's the key word? Times. Now with this one, we're going to write it like this. 4y. Okay? What is 4 represent again? Now, it has a word. It's a special word. It's not constant, but we're close. Anybody remember? It's the number smashed right up against a variable. It starts with a C, not a constant. What was it? Coefficient. Very good.
Dang, I forgot about that special word.
Coefficient. And the coefficient has to come first. If we said Y4, it sounds like bingo. B2. Okay? Sounds like bingo. We don't want it to sound like bingo.
We don't want to copyright these.
So we have to put the number first. Number first, then the variable. So let's write that over here. When multiplying the number which is known as our coefficient must come first. So again, our number needs to come first, then our variable. Now, yes, our variable comes first in this problem, but when we're putting them together, because we don't want to use multiplication signs anymore, we're better than that. We're smarter than that. We know that when a number is smashed up against a variable, it means to multiply, so we don't have to use the multiplication symbol. Could you still use the multiplication symbol and put y times 4? Yes, you could. You could still do that. This right here just makes you look smarter, okay? So it makes us look like 6th graders, okay? All right, and the last one. So 14 divided by A as a variable. This one again is self-explanatory. If we're dividing, okay, there's 2 ways to write this. Obviously, we can do 14 divided by symbol A. Or there's one other way. Does anybody know? What do you think, Victor? No, that's multiplying. What do you think, TJ? 14A, that's multiplying, remember? So we're dividing, Alexia. Very good, a fraction. Because remember, so we're going to put 14 over A, because what is that fraction bar? Division symbol. So we can use a fraction as well. So 14, obviously with a divided by symbol, A, or 14 over A. Because that reminds us that this is division. Okay? All right. So again, when we are writing expressions, they're going to give it to us in words, and then we're going to have to actually write the actual problem.